Let the meltdown begin. MMA Meltdown on the Fight Network. I am Gabriel Morency. Let's do this thing. Is when we put the pedal to the metal. UFC 185. Reed Kuhn, Fightnomics.com is going to join me. Robin Black's going to join me in studio. We're going to talk some fantasy MMA. As our $500 free roll is up and running, courtesy of our friends over at Kountermove.com. If you're not playing a Kountermove, you're missing out. And how much is the free roll? It's free to enter. $500 in cash prizes being distributed to the top players in our UFC 185 fantasy league. You just pick 5 fighters. There's a salary cap, and we got a great freaking card this week. And you guys know me. I'm relatively honest. I'm not going to say I've never lied to you before, because I've lied to you on this show before. So I'm not going to say I've never lied. You know, I think I've told you some guys were great guys, and then the next day they like assaulted people and stuff like that. I've been wrong before, but you know me. I'll tell you, if I think a card sucks or is just sort of this card isn't When you got Matt freaking Brown and Johnny Hendricks, not as the main event, not as the co-main event, you got yourself a pretty damn good card put together here. The main event, very, very intriguing. I think Anthony Pettis is going to win. Am I in a hurry to be laying minus 425, minus 450 with Pettis? Not really. The Overeem Roy Nelson fight, man, that's an intriguing fight. Real tough fight to predict. You know, let's be honest. Alistair Overeem, the dude's got a glass chin. Roy Nelson, he's got an iron chin, but he's got a glass brain. He's a freaking head case. You don't know what you're going to get with Roy Nelson. To me, an interested Roy Nelson easily beats Alistair Overeem. But I don't know. Is Roy interested? He's so damn aloof. I don't know. Real tough. It's a great card to watch. I think it's a pretty tricky card to bet, but we'll do our best to aid and abet you here this evening, literally and figuratively. We got a really cool video this week that we'll wrap the show up with as well. Let's bring in Reed Kuhn, Fightnomics.com, the author himself. Reed, it's always a pleasure. How you doing?
I'm doing great, and I'm looking forward to a pretty good card this weekend.
No, you know what? I'm really fired up for this, man. You know, from top to bottom, the first fight of the night's going to be a banger with Randami and Pacheco coming out of the gate. You know, the Ross Pearson and a Sam Stout fight, very, very interesting. Should be an entertaining fight. And like as I mentioned, you know, when you've got Johnny Hendricks and you got Matt Brown, and they're not even the co-main event or the main event, you know it's a pretty deep card.
Absolutely, yeah. This is pretty loaded, and you didn't mention Henry Cejudo. This guy's an Olympic gold medalist, and I think he's going to be fighting for a title before the end of the year, and he's just leading off the pay-per-view. So, yeah, it's pretty stacked.
Yeah, 6-1 favorite he is. You think, obviously his wrestling is unparalleled, as you mentioned, gold medalist here. He's had a lot of problems with the weight cuts and the transition into mixed martial arts, but he does, you know, there's just that different breed of athlete, isn't there, Reed? And he seems to be that guy. So you think he is the future of the division?
Well, I certainly think he challenges for a title. Now, Mighty Mouse is a tough out for anyone, but I think he gets there. And what surprised me most is his striking. We didn't even hardly see his wrestling in his debut. We saw amazing striking from him. So that's why I think this guy's the real deal.
And then, you know, the second fight on the pay-per-view portion, Roy Nelson and Alistair Overeem. Alistair Overeem's a 2-1 favorite. I'm going to be honest. Overeem, ruined my life. This guy, ruined a year of my life, Reed. I was living in Vegas, and I was there during the bad run. I remember Super Bowl weekend when he got knocked out against Bigfoot, and he was running his mouth, and it was the longest entrance into the octagon ever, and I wanted to start smashing things, and I've been on the wrong side of him. The Travis Brown, at which he looked good, and then he fell apart. But he looked so damn good, but then he gets hit. Like I just said off the top of the program, Reed, all things being equal, I think Roy Nelson beats this guy. But I've always had a hard time gauging Roy Nelson, and it's tough to get in this guy's head and what his focus and his desire is, to be honest.
Yeah, it's true. I've had a pretty good beat on Roy Nelson in the past. He hasn't fared well against technical strikers, and Alistair Overeem is a technical striker. He's got a 7-inch reach advantage. His power head striking accuracy is actually the best on the entire card as a heavyweight, and so he does hit hard as well. But you mentioned the chin. You mentioned he's been knocked out 3 times in the last 5 fights. That's a lot, and so his chin rating on a per-punch basis is quite low. and that's dangerous because Nelson's knockdown rate is actually higher, and he has knocked out more people. So for heavyweights, there's tons of volatility in these matchups, and this one is the epitome of volatility. I mean, you've got Overeem better on all these metrics except the fact that he can't take a hit, and Nelson, that's the one thing he's good at doing.
Yeah, exactly. It's the one thing he's good at doing. And not to mention, Roy Nelson's got pretty heavy hands if he connects with you as well. You got to believe Roy Nelson, to me, has a distinct advantage on the ground. I mean, we know that Overeem's got a great ground and pound if he's on top of you, but Nelson's got good ground skills. You know, we've seen that. He's a black belt. We know he's got great ground skills, but he doesn't really use them. Like I said, you know, Roy, I've had success with Roy at times, and at other times he's come out real flat. You know, what does your gut tell you on this one, man? Because you can't lay minus 210 with Overeem. To me, it's Roy Nelson or pass if you're betting it.
Yeah, probably, and I don't even think you bother just playing Roy Nelson. You play Roy Nelson by KO or inside the distance because that's how he wins. If it gets out of the first round and a half, then all of a sudden this fight changes. So you mentioned the juice. You know, straight up, I would probably avoid this simply because of all that risk. Overeem is a better fighter, and yet he is so at risk. So I would take a more specific play. If I were going upset hunting, I would probably go, you know, Nelson by TKO or something, and try to get bigger value. And that way it's more of a low probability but a high payoff play.